Ayo, welcome back to the Luck Management Podcast, always brought to you by Charm ND. Today on October 6th, 2023, we have episode number 58, and we have on a very special guest today, a friend, a mentor, a former teacher, uh, Notre Dame professor, Patrick Gibbons. Welcome to the Luck Management Podcast. So happy you're here.
Hey, Carter, glad to be here with you.
This has been a long time in the making. One of my favorite teachers, strategic communication, going through all the different presentations with you. And if we went back to the MSM class and everyone said, "Hey, what would be your favorite class?" You are up there. You're an inspiration.
I'm glad to hear it. We try
Um,
to have fun.
Yeah, we did. And we learned a ton. We were able to give business presentations. We were able to um, just learn a little bit more than just a classroom setting. The syllabus wasn't set. It was, hey, what can we create together? I love that
Yeah.
aspect.
Well, good. Yeah, I enjoy it. I love the students. And I mean, it's funny. Even one of the funnier things I remember was the one student, he was in your group. And God, I can't remember his name right off the bat. It might be your roommate who
Oh,
said,
Reed?
Reed. And can you remember his presentation? He said, if you had asked me what Lockheed Martin was a week ago or 3 days ago, I would have thought it was a bank. But when Professor Gibbons told me my presentation was due today, I learned a lot about them in the last 24 hours. I, I was dying, but it was a good presentation.
You're right. He actually did a very good job and learned a ton about it. And
Yeah,
funny enough, I was a couple weeks ago, I was in Colorado Springs and we drove by Lockheed Martin's main
yeah,
uh, campus right there because it was right by the Naval Academy.
yeah.
Keep your friends close, right? Like
Wait a
stay
minute, you said Colorado Springs? That's
Colorado Springs.
Air Force Academy, right?
Oh, Air Force Academy.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
A
and
little different.
yeah, little different, little different. Um, but it was like amazing to be able to see that. But I want to be able to get into all about your path to Notre Dame and everything that came along with it. But the first thing that we like to do, and something that I've been evolving in episodes, is just talking about luck management and what that means to the podcast. So throughout 58 episodes, it's definitely changed and evolved. But I always say that it refers to optimizing and capitalizing on those chance opportunities that you're given. So you're put into a world where you have to make decisions, but at one point you're not always given. You don't know the situation and you don't know the outcome, and you got to just believe that what you're doing. So you got to take those potential risks. You need to be strategic and you need to be adaptable. Just like in strategic communication, you need to be able to understand the situation and figure it out towards the optics of it. And so, luck management is just growing and pouncing on those opportunities. When I say luck management, is there anything that springs to mind for you?
It reminds me of something I heard, and I can't cite this exactly, but Abraham Lincoln, when he was president, he would interview generals who were going out to take charge of various armies or forces. And the last question he always asked them, regardless of where they went to school or what their background was, are you lucky?
Mm,
And I think even old Abe recognized that, it takes a little bit of luck, even if you work really hard.
right.
You got to be a lucky person. So, but like people do make to some extent their luck. They can certainly help their chances of getting lucky.
Right, right. We've talked about it time and time again. I think that there is definitely luck out there. You win the lottery, you didn't get on that plane, or there's those chance moments. But one thing that we've talked at ad nauseum on this too is like you create your own luck, and the hard work that you're putting in and the time and the effort determines how lucky you're really going to be.
Yeah, agree.
So I love that. I didn't know that Abraham Lincoln was one of the precursors for the luck management podcast.
He really was luck leadership. Maybe I don't know.
Luck leadership. Ooh, That might have to be a course one day I I create or something.
Yeah, no kidding.
Um, but episode number 58, I've had a couple professors on here, but I am just thankful to be able to sit down with you and understand more about your background.
Mhm.
So why don't we just like hop into it a little bit because I want everyone to know more about Patrick Gibbons. So can you just give me a little bit about your upbringing and moving to Notre Dame?
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised outside the suburbs of Detroit, a place called Lincoln Park, Michigan. I'm the sixth of 11 Irish Catholic kids.
Oh my
So
God.
I grew up in a crowded house. My wife still is amazed that we had one bathroom. Well, she wonders about how that could actually be the case, but
How did that work?
it was busy. We were in motion, no question,
Right.
and five sisters. So yeah,
Mhm.
it was challenging. Anyway, when I hit 18, I turned 18. I joined the Marine Corps actually to get away from a crowded house and actually to get out of the city. Where I grew up, most people went to work in the factories at that time, whether it was Great Lakes Steel or one of the auto manufacturers. And I really wanted to do something different. So I kind of got out of town and kept on going, really. I would come back occasionally and visit. And every time I did, it made me realize why I joined.
Right,
And
right.
that's
You
not
love your
that's not
family. You
I
love your
love my
family
family.
until you have to, like, go see them all the time or be right there.
It isn't just that. I think the situation, circumstances. I was really in a lower middle class family, and it wasn't really a great place. It wasn't until I moved away I realized how rough it was, the neighborhood I grew up in. So I'm a first generation college student, first one of any of my brothers and sisters to get a 4-year degree, and I got a master's degree. But I
Wow.
really kind of grew up in the Marine Corps. I spent 25 years in the Marine Corps. Was very fortunate to work for some very good people who spent the time to teach me some things, and I think made me believe in myself, made me do things that I didn't really think I could do. So, I served in what's called a reconnaissance battalion, which,
Mhm.
if you're those who might know what the military is like, it's probably, we would never say this. I would say it's equivalent to Army Rangers, but no
Okay.
Marine would ever say there's an Army comparison. But I went
No,
to a lot
no.
of their schools, so jumping out of airplanes, Pathfinder School, all the schools. You know, lots of time at night in the mountains, in the water, all over the place. And it does. It's a very outdoorsy life, and it kind of built my confidence. So it got me believing, I think, more in myself than I ever would have in Detroit. When I finished up, I was the head of media relations for the Marine Corps at the Pentagon. And then that it was kind of like almost a Forrest Gump like story. I kept failing up. So one job always led to the next. I went to work for a governor in Arizona, stayed out there for a few years, and then my wife wasn't too crazy about Arizona, so we went back to North Carolina, and I went to a company or an organization that was um, mostly funded by USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development.
Mhm.
So I actually went back to Iraq as a civilian to help
Wow.
try and restore post-war Iraq for a while. Um, and I stayed there 10 years at that company, and then went up to Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, which was university affiliated, but a research center, very military like. A lot of their work is for DoD and national security studies and national security technology mostly.
Right.
Some big projects for NASA. And then honestly, it wasn't until I came to Notre Dame that anyone thought I might turn out to be okay. And I met Tom Burrish, the provost,
Come on.
and Tom asked me if I'd come to work at Notre Dame, and I said sure, and I really look forward to it. And that's no kidding. I had been the head of communications at Johns Hopkins, vice president of communications at a major nonprofit, but it wasn't until I came to Notre Dame that anybody thought, "Oh, Pat, you must actually be okay." So I've had a good time.
Well, I just wrote down all of that. So going from the Marine Corps for 25 years, the Pentagon, then you went out to Arizona, to North Carolina, and bouncing back around for the USAID. I even going to Iraq, like going international, and you've talked about some of those stories of having to um, what do you call it? Media relations or making
Yeah,
sure that uh,
sure.
the relations work out well. But moving from Johns Hopkins to Notre Dame, all that movement that you did, going from one place to the other, can you talk about how those experiences shaped you, and how you built on those experiences a bit?
And, it's interesting. I hadn't thought about it, but I would say almost every one of those, I took on a new challenge that I really didn't think I could do,
Right.
um, and I didn't. But I managed to just figure it out. Just work hard, be honest, try your best, and it really worked. I would say that first getting out of the Marine Corps and starting uh, in working in Arizona was interesting because it's the first time I had a job where you could be fired.
Yeah.
And it was I was kind of a political appointee, so there you really can be let go when the governor changes. And I survived a transition between governors, from a Republican to a Democrat.
Oh,
And
cool.
I think the
You're
military kind of helped
bipartisan.
me. Yeah, well, and I'm really apolitical. I,
Yeah.
I, I really am. I try to go with the values of the person, and the responsibilities and the team they bring.
I'll tell you
So
what, not a lot of people are doing that, or not a lot of people follow those. They kind of just tag along with somebody because it writes their ticket.
yeah, we could all benefit from arguing a little better, as we talked about, right?
Strategic
in
communication
in
is
class,
key,
respectfully disagree, but try to resolve our differences instead of make them fights. Uh,
right?
but anyways, I've had a good time. I think I've worked on really big programs. Probably the best job I really ever had was North Carolina.
Cool.
I was vice president of communication for a major nonprofit research organization, had projects in 75 countries around the world. Full-time job, full-time as in nonstop, crazy, but great. Um, and my boss gave me a lot of freedom, a lot of
Good.
freedom. And the other thing is I could still be there, probably. I could have stayed there and retired there, but I like to take my own advice sometimes. And I had been there 10 years, and I thought, if I don't leave here, nobody else is going to get promoted. So,
Always
and
thinking about the other person.
well, I'll talk about this later, but, or, maybe, but I don't think anybody their career goal should be to work for Pat Gibbons. So I
Come
actually
on.
used to take my folks and try to get them qualified and send them out so that they could be, their own boss. Or really, I teach everything I know. I share with you everything I know, and I hope if you're smarter than I am, and a lot of people are, you'll do a lot better than I do. So
Right.
I really take pride in kicking people out the door. And I had people thought I was crazy, like trying to get rid of them.
Yeah.
And I remember one young lady who was like, "Don't you like me?" I was like, "No, I mean, just I think you
Sure.
can go be a vice president of communications somewhere else. You're great. Someday we're all going to end up working for you." So she was great. But I think that was a big part of it. So I took my own advice and went to Johns Hopkins, and I was the chief communication officer there.
Yeah.
Honestly, it wasn't really a great move. The traffic in Baltimore was a nightmare. Um, 1 hour commute each way. That wasn't terrible. It was
Right.
just I didn't really have the freedom the way I had there, and so much of the work we did was highly classified that
You want to give
it
some
really was.
secrets? No, just kidding.
I no, I can't. But that's the thing. If you're in communications and your whole job is highly classified, it's like if only I could tell you the wonderful things we do. So it
Right.
wasn't a lot of
Hand
fun.
behind your
And
back.
yeah, but we did some great work there, and I'm still good friends with a lot of the folks. I think Ralph may have spoken to your class, the
Mhm.
director of the lab. So I still work with those guys, and I still know them all. They're good friends, but it wasn't a lot of fun to be the communication guy there. So I think when Notre Dame became an opportunity, it was not quite a no-brainer, but it worked really well for where I was in my career at the time.
And what you wanted to move into, and and become. It's a
Yeah,
culmination of everything. How it all builds like a snowball, right? It turns into an avalanche. The
yeah,
thing that I think about when I just hear about your background and stuff, coming from a family of 11, that area of looking for freedom too, and being able to
Yeah.
get away when you guys could have fielded a whole football team together. Um,
We did have the whole infield on a baseball team one year, I think.
right? I
Yeah.
mean that's actually amazing though, and where you succeeded a lot in those positions were those areas where you were given freedom. Uh, and I think that some people in work are having trouble of finding that freedom, especially my age, because
Yeah.
you have to go in and do the work, or you have almost no freedom
Yeah.
uh, because you need to prove yourself for years. But at the same time, you're wanting to get that freedom, or you're wanting to get that so that you can create and you can build.
Yeah.
That's something I've always struggled with because in early in your career, you have to you have to go through it a little bit.
You do. I mean, one thing I would say is, the best bosses are the ones who give you freedom.
Mm,
And when they give you freedom, you can do things better than they could design them. And I think
right?
I've always been dependent on my people. So I give them as much freedom as they can possibly want. And I'd love my boss to do the same thing for me so that we can do our best without being worried about it. Um,
It's almost like servant leadership though, too. These moments where you said that you pushed people away, and that wasn't because you didn't like them, it's because you're trying to provide for them in a way that maybe they didn't even recognize for themselves.
yeah. Yeah, that's really what it is. I want them to go do well. I want them to not be afraid to go try new things because, people do get comfortable. And,
Yep.
really, I have made a bit of a career by taking big chances, um,
Mm,
by just saying, I don't know if I should do this. And I think, I haven't been scared in a while. Let me go scare myself and go try something new.
that's
And
amazing.
it's never easy, but the rewards are very interesting and
Yeah.
they don't always work out.
And so on that, I guess, a little bit, you said when you felt like you were too comfortable. I was listening to somebody, and it's kind of like when somebody's in the hospital and they look at someone's heartbeat. When it's going up and down, that means you're living, right? That means that everything's fine. But when you're flatlining, things aren't good. You're just staying stagnant and stuff like that. How how did you jump into those moments of, hey, you know what? I'm a little scared, or I don't know what's coming, but I gotta do this for me.
I would say that when you hear yourself saying bad things about your job, you need to start thinking hard. When that becomes kind of not that you're complaining, but you're just not excited about it. I think it's a good time to start looking for new opportunities. Um, but
Right.
that's easier said than done. I mean, 2 years ago it was very easy to move around. It's getting less easy now. Um,
Mm,
and all the best paying jobs are actually quite hard. The reason they're paying you a lot is because it's a hard job. And that is
that's
why
the
they call
truth.
it work. So it isn't always fun. If you can be part of a good team, I think that's really the real key. Uh, and the people who never wanted to leave my place, um, it was because we had such a good team. And
Right.
that it is hard to leave a good team, very hard. So
As much of a
stuff like that.
place that can build culture or has the name recognition behind it, you are the culmination of your employees. You're the culmination of your manager trying to empower you. You're a culmination of that shared value. Uh, and I haven't always felt that in all the workspaces that I've been in. And there may be a facade of that, and people can really see and rat out authenticity. If you're not being authentic and you're not doing things for a core valid reason, I think that's where people and organizations start to falter.
Not to give a recruiting plug for the Marine Corps, but
Go
one
ahead.
thing I would say is the culture of the Marine Corps is a little bit like that.
Mhm.
They actually expect you and need you to operate independently. It's a very small service. They have something they call commander's intent, which is here's what we're trying to make happen. There's no way I can tell you from headquarters how to do that.
Uh-huh.
But if we put you out there, you'll know better than that. So we'll give you the permission to do, they give you some boundaries, but generally,
Yeah, you're
we
within.
want you to get this done. And here are the parameters. And they reward, I think a mindset that solves problems. So I think I kind of grew up in that. I was very fortunate in that way.
Ayo, this episode is sponsored and brought to you by Charm ND. Charm ND specializes in creating unique and authentic sterling silver vials and real items from around the Notre Dame campus. Each charm is carefully handmade and contains a little piece of the Fighting Irish spirit. Vials filled with dirt from the iconic main quad, pellets from the hollowed ground of the Notre Dame football stadium, wood shavings from the seats of the stadium, 24-karat golds from the Notre Dame football helmets, water from the serene St. Joseph's Lake, candle wax from the peaceful grotto, water from the Notre Dame reflecting pond, and holy water for added blessings. Charms are priced at between $20 and $30 and can be customized to your needs as a necklace or a lucky charm. Check us out at charm_ND at Instagram. Our charms are a perfect gift for any Notre Dame fan or alum. So go Charm ND and go Irish. Now let's get back to the show.
Yeah, that's beautiful too, because I don't think somebody would look at a organization like that and say that there is freedom, because people look at military
Yeah, you really
organizations.
wouldn't. And the Coast Guard is even better. I mean, the Coast Guard, it's a smaller service. And they're a petty officer standing on a boat, on the deck. He could make a decision that the Army or Air Force would have to call the Pentagon and get permission to
Right.
make. and by God, he's the guy. The deal is, if you're standing on the deck, it's your boat. You do, we
Yeah.
trust you to do what you're supposed to do.
I can't do anything in this moment. This is on you.
Yep. So
I might
it's
join
a
the
good thing.
Coast Guard. Talk
There
to
you
you in a
go.
little bit.
The great service.
My grandfather was actually in the Coast Guard, so
Yeah.
he did and served, and he would go up from San Diego up to Alaska, and then I don't think he ever ate fish again, and I think he was done with getting on boats. But
Yeah.
it was cool experiences to be able to hear from him, and first, just thank you for your service. And Olivia, by the way, she says hello and everything. I mean, she's going through her Air Force training, like she's
Right.
out in Colorado, going flying every day, learning how to be a pilot, learning how to serve as an officer. It's really something amicable and beautiful to see.
Yeah, that's cool.
Um, well, in all the experience and life that you've lived, if you were to look at your life and sum it up into 5 words, what would those 5 words come out to be?
Yeah, I think I don't know that these would be in the exact order. Sometimes they change,
No
but
worries.
fun. I really like to have fun. They say if you can get a job and have fun, it makes it not like work. So if you're good at what you do, you enjoy it, you can have fun doing your work. Um, Risk. I like to take risks. I like to scare myself every now and then. But with that, the next word would probably be fear. I'm very much governed by fear. Uh, I like to scare myself, but it is scary doing it and trying to figure out, can I really get this done, take on a big project, and then um, stand up and volunteer and say you can do it, and then actually have to deliver can be
Right.
scary. Um, I think determination probably is one, and determination will get you through a lot. Um, and then finally, I'd probably say gratitude, and I mean that most sincerely. I have so many people to thank. I think sometimes I should spend a year just going back to all the people who have helped me and shake their hand, or because I really, there have been so many people who have been so good to me over the years,
Yeah.
teaching me things, um, covering me, working for me, doing things that I don't know how to do. I'm just so very lucky that I'm very appreciative of that.
Hey, the lucky term. But Pat, I could see just from the short year that we spent together that people want to work with you, or they want to be able to grow their relationship with you because you invest back into people. And that gratitude really does show through. And it's one of those things. Having gratitude is hard for a lot of people, where it's like, oh, just be thankful. Being thankful is wonderful at times, but it's about finding and seeing some of maybe the hard things, actually recognizing those risky things or those fearful things are going to make you a better person so that you can be a better person for someone else. I absolutely
Yeah.
love it.
Two things I'd mention there. One exercise one exercise that I did with my undergrads this semester was in one of the classes. I had them sit down. We talked about gratitude,
Hmm.
how to do it, specific, how to offer apologies and express gratitude. And I actually had them write a note of thanks or a thank you note as part of the class assignment, and it was in class writing. So, they didn't really want to do it. Some of them
Right.
were very willing, others were not. And then the next class, they got together and I said, tell me about the reception of this note. And some of them were generally thrilled. I mean, or genuinely thrilled.
Hmm.
One said, my grandmother, I like made her weak. And other people who had kept a journal and roommates and people they worked with and people they knew at school. And it actually, gratitude is a gift that keeps on giving, because if you can make the time to actually express it, it makes you feel better. And it really does make somebody else's day as well,
Does.
um, for what it's worth. So that was a fun one. And you may remember in one class, I think we used to occasionally just go around and say something good that happened to you this week.
It
And,
makes
and the
such a
reason is,
difference.
it does. And the reason is because when you're in business, you tend to focus on problems. That's
Yep.
what you do in business. You're working on problems, you're working on projects. And if you don't take time to recognize the good things, the funny things, the entertaining things that happen to you, you'll walk right past them and only focus on the problems and the work. So, really important.
Two things on that. So off of your two, we did that for Chris Muir's class in transformational leadership last year, and it changed the way that you look at the relationship with somebody. But it's so beautiful because I wrote it to my dad, and my dad knows I'm grateful for him and I'm thankful. But being able to actually put out those words and tell him thank you and I appreciate you, it just builds a deeper relationship, and I'm sure that those students felt that.
Yeah, cool.
Um, and then the second one on gratitude, I actually have this thing called it says need more time. Upload provides. Okay, it says it'll end in 10 minutes, but we might have to send an extra link. I'll let you know.
Okay.
Um, but the second one was I have on my phone is the grateful for. And so at 7:30 every day, it's give four things that you're grateful for and
Huh.
talk about those things, because even just saying those words and building it out, it creates a level of gratitude. You want something to be real, you got to practice it every single day. I
Yeah.
love that aspect of it.
Yep.
Um, so first off, this has been really, really cool to see, but I want to shift a little bit in business. You've been in so many different positions before. If you were to start a business today, what would you manage and what would you create or do?
Now it's different. I'm 65,
Hmm.
so I probably wouldn't be starting a business at this point. But if
Why
I
not?
were, if I were, for me, it would probably be something I've been talking about for a couple of years, and that is we've got this big empty Sears store here in South Bend, Mishawaka. You're probably familiar with it. I would probably try to transform that into an indoor sports complex that
Oh,
maybe
cool.
has a bunch of pickleball courts,
I love that.
maybe has a track around it, maybe a rock climbing wall, and eventually a bar.
Okay, so
um,
in Texas, there's pickleball bars around here, and every Friday and Saturday, it is packed for hours. It's amazing.
Yeah. I think it'd be a good business. And the big thing for me is that mall's been empty for 3 years.
Hmm.
It's could be such a vibrant place. Um, so that's probably what I would do. And I think in the
Take a
winter months,
Macy's.
obviously, huh?
Take a Macy's and just clear it out, honestly.
Yeah, you could. You don't really need tremendously high ceilings, but the ceilings in there, I think, are 24, 28 feet. So
You
you
could.
could do pickleball um, pretty easily in a walking track. Because, the winters here, it's kind of hard. You have to find a way to get indoors. And in the
Right.
heat of the summer, even on a windy day, you can't play pickleball as well as you'd like. So
Hmm.
it is the fastest growing sport around and a very affluent market, as you
Do
know.
you play?
A little bit. Yeah, I've played probably 5 times, not as much as I'd like, but eventually I will.
I love it. I love going out with my friends. You don't have to worry too much. Like if you lose a point, it's not that big of a deal. But when I played tennis, you get so frustrated because it's just a whole different way. It's fast paced, and
Yeah.
you can have a beer with it, or you can just like go get some nachos and then come back to the game. It's fun.
And it's very social too. I mean, there's a lot of
Mhm.
pickup games and just hang your paddle and jump in the mix. So yeah.
Hey, if you need somebody to go in on that venture with you, you know the guy to
You
call.
I would tell you, I really think that's an opportunity for somebody. I was talking to you may know David Murphy over at the Idea Center.
Uh-huh.
I I said I think you guys should develop a business plan for this. I mean, to me it seems like a very easy one, but
All right, catch me
we'll
creating
see.
some sort of business plan.
Yeah,
Rave Bay.
yeah, there we go.
Um,
Rave Bay.
Speaking of Ray Bay, just for all the listeners, I did a presentation in Pat's class, and it's based around vending machines based for all the different supplies and materials that you get for festivals, whether that's pashminas, glasses, liquid IVs, battery chargers. And it is so true. When you are doing something that you're passionate about, that you love, and that you're interested in, it comes out in the presentations and it
Yeah.
flows through. Too many people are living in silent desperation of just doing a job that they do because it pays the bills. Do something that you love and that's like going to drive
No question.
you. So that's awesome. Um, this one is always an interesting question that I love to hear. But in your life,
Mhm.
who has been the most critical and even crucial person in your life?
Boy, that's a really tough one, and I say that because I can think of so many people that I'm really indebted to. I mean, I owe a lot of thanks to an awful lot of people. I
Hmm.
mean,
You mentioned.
my family, my parents, uh, the Marines I've worked for and with over the years, and a lot of the colleagues I've had since. But I really think, and I thought about this one hard. I thought, if it really comes down to it, it really has to be my wife, Cricket. Um, I mean, she's been a partner in a project that's now we've been married 35 years. Um, so I mean, it's been a long term project. I've been with her longer than I've been with anything else.
Right.
Um, she went through the Marine Corps life with me, put up with
Okay.
that,
Yeah.
put up with me going back to Iraq as a civilian, put up with me being in the Pentagon on 9/11, put
Yeah.
up
She
with
deserves an
me.
award.
She really does, no question, and she's really good about it. She raised our son, and really, I was busy for most of those years, and
Mhm.
she did a great job. So I think if I think of one person who's absolutely critical, um, I shouldn't say it too loud. I don't want her to hear this, but it would be my wife, Cricket. I,
Well, we always have a shout out on the week, a shout out of the week. So shout out Cricket. I mean, that's the thing. My parents look at that too, and they've been married almost 30 years now, and it's a partnership. It's building together. And my mom always says, 1 + 1 = 3. You should be able to push each other and bring more out of each other to allow you to be better. And it
yeah,
sounds like you both are able to do that.
she pushes me.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's good though. Yeah.
totally understood. And that's amazing too. In that end, you were saying like throughout all your years of work, I just wanted to ask from all that time that you're spending in business and building these relationships, what sort of advice would you give the Luckies? I like to call them the Luckies from your life. Like what could they take with them to maybe institute into their lives a little bit more?
Yeah. Some of these are just like almost trite, but be on time.
That's a good
Most
one.
people aren't. If
Mm-hmm.
you're on time, you'll be prepared to succeed. If you're late, you'll be nervous. You won't do your best. I think backing that up or right behind that is, if you say you're going to do something, do it. A lot of people say they're going to do stuff and never get around to it. So, try to be diligent about getting things done. Um, a third one I would say, and I didn't learn this early enough in life, but don't complain. It just, even if you feel like it's deserving, it just looks bad.
Yeah, it's a
So
drainer.
try not to complain. Just try to, laugh about it if you have to. If you really have to complain that much, you should think about doing something else. I'm talking about work now,
Yeah, yeah.
but it doesn't help. And when you hear yourself complaining, actually, that's probably what takes me away from a job. Is when I hear myself complaining about something, I think it's time to move on. Because if I'm saying that, I don't really deserve to be here. They need somebody who loves it, and that's obviously not me anymore. So I think that's a good one. And then I think finally I would say for all your listeners or viewers, try to marry well. It certainly helped me.
Yep, that's a good one.
If you can.
The
It's
other
a
half,
key.
I completely get that. The complaining aspect is something too, because it's so easy to complain, or it's so uh, it takes more muscles to smile or frown than it does smile. But sometimes it is hard. Sometimes you just want to let
It
it
really
go,
is.
and
No
finding
question.
those people to be like, hey, I just want to let this out. But you know what? Your thoughts and your mind, you need to be able to work through those things. And you don't need to be a sometimes it's a drain. It's like either you're an energy giver or you're an energy taker. Try and always give that energy.
Yeah. Well, and the kind of people you want to be around, and you are not people who complain.
No, no,
I
exactly.
mean, we all need somebody we can complain to or talk to, no question.
That's the truth.
But
Get some therapy.
if you're a complainer, uh, yeah, it's not going to help you long run. It just looks bad.
100%. Okay, we are back with Patrick Gibbons. This has been incredible so far. Really appreciate you being able to just take the time, and we just have a few more questions for you and just learning more about you.
Yeah.
And you've already given us such a big breadth of knowledge. But if you were to look and say, and almost explain to the listeners, like what is something that is truly core to you?
It's interesting question. I really, this is almost sad. I think actually fear of failure, to be honest. I grew up in a big family, middle class. I never really wanted to end up back there. So my parents did not have tremendous means. So when we turned 18, we were pretty much on our own. There was
Mhm.
not a big safety net. So I think I've kind of worked my way through, but I work hard because I'm kind of always concerned about all the other things that can go wrong. And I've been very lucky, but I think hard work, but always in the back of my mind, the need to work harder. And I think to try to just do my best.
Yeah, I think there was just a study that just came out that was New York Times. It was like if you want to perform your best, do it at 85%. They said don't give 100%. And it's like, oh man, everybody's been going balls to the wall 100% all the time.
Yeah.
But that fear of failure, I deal with it because you're on the shoulders of your education, finding a good job, being able to lead people and talk to people, and make sure that you're doing the things that you need to do.
Ayo, today's luck management episode is brought to you by Charm ND, or Charmed, if you'd like to call it, whatever you want to call it. It could be whatever you'd like. So Charm ND is an idea I came up with, and I'm super passionate about it. I've always wanted to hold a piece of Notre Dame in my hand. Highly customizable to whatever you want. And they have the grotto. They have the reflecting pond water from Hesburgh Library. They have 24 karat gold flakes, the dirt from Main Quad. They have stadium seat shavings from the old seats of Notre Dame. The Notre Dame Stadium football pellets of the enjoyed and loved football team. And if you want to make one customizable, I'm happy to work with you. Go Irish and go Charm ND. Now let's get back to the show.
The same point, though, when you get to that internal locus of understanding, like this failure is brought on by you. And I think you don't need to be scared of it, because it's going to teach you and show you that you can be the man that you need to be, or the woman that you want to
be. I'm growing out of it very slowly. But
well,
I think if you really, and I'm really enjoying things a lot more now that I don't worry so much about it.
It's beautiful to see, and I appreciate you being able to like see that and know that it's one of those pieces of your life that you're still going through at 65. People think that you just hit some sort of destination and then it's done. And the fact of the matter is that it's an evolution and changing every single day.
Yeah, I once heard it said, I can't remember where this came from, but I may be 65, but inside I'm still 15. I'm still 25. I'm still 10, 7. My wife would say 7 or 8
Yeah,
sometimes, but
me too.
it's all still in there. There's a whole bunch of baggage all of us are carrying, and most of it's good, so it's all good.
Right. And we have a lot of expectations for ourselves, and we want things to work out. Sometimes you got to just take a step back, though, and
Yeah.
that ends up putting you forward even more. You were talking a little bit earlier about the freedom side of things. It's like, oh, you think the most controlling person would be the best leader. No, it's like letting things go to be able to move forward. I love that.
Yeah.
Um,
This didn't come into a question, but I'm actually, I probably told you guys this in class, but I'm dyslexic. So math was never going to be my strong suit and all those things. But I think it gives me a humility, or a sense of humility that makes me trust others. I really need good people around me. I try to treat people well, and people always respond and do very well. I trust them because I have to,
right.
and they do great things for me, and I try to do great things for them. But there's always a concern that I can be so wrong,
I
and
know.
I've been wrong before quite a bit.
Hey, we all have.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect. I 100% can kind of see that. Is dyslexia, is it only numbers?
No, it's really kind of a language processing thing.
Yeah.
So I just perceive things slightly different, I think, than other people. There's
That's
good and
good
bad
though.
parts of it. Yeah, I mean, there's Sir Richard Branson. He's dyslexic. Whoopi Goldberg. They're very famous people. A lot of them actors. They're people who work very well in unstructured environment. It's very difficult for folks like me to follow rules. Um,
Me too.
and that
Stubborn,
makes that yeah. So that's why I need the freedom. But I do make a lot of little mistakes. So that keeps you humble.
right? Hey, it's a lot of this, right? To get up, just trying to get
Absolutely.
1% better.
Thank
Um,
you.
Now you've mentioned this before of all the people that you could thank, but if there was one person that you could have dinner with and just pick their brain and talk to them about life or whatever you'd want to, who would it be?
um, Somebody who's alive, or do they have to be alive? Or
Either or.
I would say if it could be anybody, I think I'd like to have dinner with the late Robin Williams. Um,
Really?
I'm a big fan. I mean, of everything from the Dead Poet Society to all
Me
of
too.
his work and his range of characters. I'd really like to kind of pick his brain. I think it would be very interesting to see who the real guy is. Um, I mean, he had some circumstances in the way he passed and everything. He had a lot going on,
Yeah.
but Boy,
Did you
what a
hear
talented guy.
that it wasn't suicide? Like he had like a brain eating disorder or flesh
Right.
eating disorder that
Yeah.
was maybe he did ultimately end his life, but it was already like in his brain and it was metastasized. It was already
Yeah.
growing to a point, and it's like there was a level of like how much pain can you take like to
Yeah.
that point. And I love Dead Poet Society and all of his movies. I mean, it's a beautiful soul.
Well, you got to imagine that the person who has that range inside his body or inside his mind would just be a fascinating person to get to know. Um,
Hmm.
because, everything from, pretty high end humor to
Right.
almost slapstick goofiness. Um, he's obviously brilliant, really.
Brilliant. And
So, yeah,
Peter Pan by him, he was great in that movie too. One of my favorites.
I think that would be I think that would be it.
I I 100% agree. I always think, oh, who would I want to have? Yeah, you could talk, oh, Jesus, or oh, I want to talk to Michael Jordan. But being able to see that, he was probably one of the most famous people in the entire world at one point.
Yeah.
Um, so once again, you've done so much in your life. What is the proudest accomplishment that you've achieved so far?
Well, I think, from class, one of the things I really want is to help kids get jobs. I mean, so
Right.
every time that happens, I feel really good about that. Um, I think even more so, though, people that I've worked with and trained, when I see them, when I manage to kick them out the door,
Hmm.
and then they go and they do great things. I mean, I've hired people, worked with them, trained them, and now they're vice presidents of communication at other places. And I mean, nothing gives me more joy than that. And seeing them, and they're all still good friends, and
Right.
they've all gone to the wins from the great teams we've had, and they're all doing very well. The current deputy director of Marine Corps Public Affairs is one of my former students, good friend. He
Wow.
called me or sent me a note a few months ago when he was promoted to colonel and said, hey, thanks for having the patience with me when I was a lieutenant. So how can that feel after 30 years later, right?
Right.
Um, so that's great. I would say another really proud moment, and this may sound like I'm blowing smoke, but to be recognized as the outstanding professor in MSM last year, um,
That was
that
amazing.
was
You
actually,
deserved it.
it was surprising, and it was really touching, honestly. And the reason is not because if they had asked faculty members, there's no way they would pick an adjunct guy.
Yeah,
I mean, they
they
just wouldn't. It wouldn't. I don't even think I'm on their radar
untenured.
screen.
Yeah.
So, so that was really nice. And to know that the students nominated, I think that was important. And, I had a really interesting year, a whole bunch of things going on.
Crazy life. I
Couple little health blips there.
bars and all like
Yeah,
you're
just
fired up.
crazy. So, but it was fun, and we all got through it. It was a good semester with everybody, so I really like that. The other thing I'd say, watching some of the things that my son does makes me very proud, and usually in unexpected ways. He's 29. He lives in Boston. He stayed with us for a while during COVID, and he was really almost running a startup company at 29 years
Wow.
old. He was pricing things. He was working with the LPGA. I mean, he was doing crazy stuff at 29 that I didn't do when I was 40.
Yeah, what was his
And
business?
it was, I don't want to give the name of it, but
Okay. Yeah.
it was a image sharing business.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
But he was doing crazy stuff, and his mom and I would say, we can't, how did you figure that out? Like, you're
Yeah.
pricing product. How did you learn to do that? I just figured it out.
You go along the way, right? You
Yeah,
just
and
keep
then
going.
he'd stand up and he did his grandfather's eulogy, um,
Wow.
and really impressive. Just for somebody his age, he's very impressive, and he makes me very proud.
That's
Not every single day,
yeah, yeah.
not every single day, but surprisingly and somewhat consistently, I think his mom did a very good job. I like to think that he got her brains or smarts in my go for it kind of mentality, and that has kind of made him fairly successful. So he makes me proud all the time.
That's fantastic. And I hope you guys have the best time visiting and everything.
Yeah.
It's extremely special.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of what he's learned has come from your experiences and you giving and imparting your advice on it. And that's every dad's dream, right? Like to be able to stand and be with their son or daughter and just be proud. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah. It's cool.
So you've moved through, you're now a Notre Dame professor. What bucket list items do you have left to achieve? What's next? Like what are you trying to get done?
I don't really have any huge bucket list items. I really don't.
Cool.
My wife and I both worked very hard a long time. We didn't do a lot of traveling or enjoyment or anything along the way. So I think we'd like to do that while we still have good health, when we could
Mhm.
go hike. And we want to get back to Europe. COVID put a big damper on all that, and it hasn't quite completely gone away yet. So we've been to Rome. We love Rome. That's definitely on our list to get back there. Um, we will probably do a river cruise in Europe somewhere. We're trying to figure out. We want to end up
Beautiful.
in Prague. And we want to see all those Eastern European countries.
Yeah.
Probably not Ukraine at the moment, but
Stay away from there for a little
all
while.
those other places. Pretty, there's a lot of travel lessons. Probably more Europe than Asia. I did a lot of Asian travel when I was in the military, and I think I've had plenty of that.
You've done that. You've been there, done that.
I had
Prague
plenty of
is
that.
one of the most beautiful cities I've ever been to.
Oh, you've been?
Yep,
Yeah,
I
and I
went with
heard the
my
food's very good and low cost.
low cost. The people are so nice too.
Yeah,
And funny enough, like back in World War II, it was a city that Hitler didn't bomb because he loved the city, and they kept all the war operations outside of it, of Prague. And so the history there is untouched, and
yeah,
it's so wonderful to see. They have everything you could imagine. I was
yeah.
blown away when I went. So really that's awesome. And hey,
Yeah.
traveling is bucket list, being able to go and see the world.
I would have said Istanbul, and I wanted to, because I think that would be a cool place to go. But I was reading the New York Times about all the fear of earthquakes. They're still recovering from some very bad earthquakes, and
Crazy.
more are predicted. They're on the like 3 or 4 fault lines. So I don't know if I really want to do that.
Just
I don't
go,
know.
hey, a weekend or a week, maybe you'll get lucky.
No extended stays in Turkey. Yeah.
Okay, but before you go and act as president, or before you go and do all your traveling, you're president.
Yeah.
What's your executive order that you're instituting?
Oh, executive order as president. God, I wish I could make the Republicans and Democrats get along together, but I don't know how long that would hold.
5
Wouldn't that be
seconds.
nice? Yeah, let me see. You know what I think I'd do, and this might be frivolous and it might make people angry. I'd probably change the national anthem.
Really?
I'd probably make it America the Beautiful. I
That's a
think
good
it's
one
I think
too.
it's a better song. I think it's a better representation of the people in the nation than such a martial tune, you know, born in a
That's
war.
true, right?
Now I've
Just
been to
thinking
Fort
of the word.
McHenry. I know the story very well. It's hard to sing. It's just not as good a song. Now I don't know if I might at the Olympics. I'd probably want to hear it first at the Olympics and see how that works. But
Mhm.
because the national anthem's a big deal. I was obviously a Marine. I've heard it plenty of
Yeah,
times.
you know it.
Um, but I think America the Beautiful is a better song. I'd probably say let's go ahead and make the switch.
I like it. That's bold too, coming from like the military background and knowing that. I love that actually, because America the Beautiful, I think that evokes a lot more emotions and it
Yeah,
transpires a lot more of what this nation means.
yeah,
So
and
that's
it's
beautiful.
easier to sing.
Yeah. You get those YouTube videos, everybody's messing up on the national anthem.
It's
Yeah.
tough. You got to start
Yep.
really low.
That's great.
Yeah,
Well, that is one thing that I've always looked at, and I think a lot more people would appreciate America in that sense of America the Beautiful. So that's cool. In terms of we you mostly deal with strategic communication, but financial literacy is something I'm just trying to like build on this podcast for people, and talking to people that have been through sessions, been through turmoil in the world of economics and stuff like that. I just wanted to see if you had any financial literacy advice or saving advice for people that are just coming out of college and starting work.
Yeah, I'm not a finance guy per se, but I'll go back to something I said earlier. If you marry, marry well.
Yeah, yeah.
Really important.
uh,
That's a big decision. Um, and it'll affect your finances for life. That's certainly a big one. But just generally, I would say credit is a necessary thing, and credit cards are a necessary thing. But you really have to live within your means, and do try to put something aside. There may be times when you can't do that, and that makes sense. But the companies that run credit cards, they make money off you not paying your card. That's how they make money. So you gotta. I think people have to try to stay even, because when you get behind and you get further behind,
it
it just
compounds.
creates it's a really difficult thing to get out of. Big loans, same thing. But at the same time, if you're going to buy a home, you're going to need to take a loan. So be a smart shopper. Um, so yeah, I think credit is, be careful with credit.
I,
Careful.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. People don't realize, 'cause they get that 6 months of no APR, and then it ends up boosting up to 27%, 30%, and people don't realize it. So
Yeah.
I get that. And then the last question we have here on the Luck Management Podcast, and we've talked about it time and time again, but do you believe in luck or fate, or do you think we make our own luck?
I think it's a little bit of both. I'm a big believer in luck. I've benefited throughout my entire life on luck. Sometimes it scares me. I've been so lucky. I think it's got to catch up with me, or I've used up all the family's luck on my
Yeah,
own. Um, but I do think the harder you work, the luckier you get. I'm sure that's true. I used to work for a CEO, and her one of the things she would say a lot was, you know, success is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Um, and opportunity and preparation to match, there's got to be some luck.
uh-huh.
I mean, some people are very prepared and never get the opportunity. Some people have a lot of opportunities and they're not prepared. There's a little bit of luck that opportunity comes when you're prepared. So that's a lucky thing. If you're not prepared, if you're not lucky, it takes luck to bring those two things together. You can think of all the times you've been prepared and there
Right.
wasn't an opportunity, and then you can think of times when an opportunity just came up so quick and you weren't prepared. Be ready for it, but without the luck, it doesn't really happen. And I don't know if you've had um, Brian, who used to run the Idea Center, Brian Ritchie. He started about 6 companies. He was like a serial entrepreneur,
I gotta talk to
and
him.
he he would say, the bad thing about luck is it can make you think you're really good.
True.
You
Yep.
can just be lucky sometimes, and so your second or third venture is where you learn a lot more when you were unlucky. So
Mhm.
I think another maybe life lesson is to never let a failure go to waste. That may be a Nick Saban thing. I think he said when Texas whooped him a couple of
Yep.
weeks ago.
He's
uh,
got a lot
you know,
of he's got a lot of knowledge to be able to say that and know that you
yeah,
could bounce
but
back.
but every time something doesn't work out, take the moment to learn from it, and you'll be better prepared for that next opportunity, and maybe lucky enough for it to come along for you.
100%. And I'm lucky to have you on this podcast. I'm lucky to know you, and I'm lucky to call you a friend, Pat. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing wisdom. People are going to eat this episode up. They're going to love it. And hey, there was nobody more deserving of that MSM award. Well, having you walk across the stage and everything, that was it was fabulous. Like it was fantastic to see. And so I just say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
You're very welcome, and thank you for spending your evening with me.
Yeah. And so wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple or Spotify, or if you want to watch the episode on YouTube at the Luck Management Podcast, keep living the luck management lifestyle. Peace.